Listen, life's all about leveling up. Whether you're handling business on the field or kicking it in your zone, you like to celebrate with cigars that match the moment. That's why you should link up with Famous Cigars to bring you a wild deal. Right now, you can grab 8 premium cigars for just $8. You heard that right. 8 top-rated cigars at $1 a stick. Top quality brands like Oliva, Romeo y Julieta, and Davidoff. Handpicked just for you and worth over $80. Hit up famouscigars.com/cam and lock in this exclusive deal. While you're there, check out their insane selection of premium cigars, all shipped fresh and fast from their massive 20,000 square foot humidor. That's half a football field. Famous Cigars has been in the game since 1939 and still family owned. So celebrate every win with the folks at Famous. 8 cigars for $8. famouscigars.com/cam.
The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. All right, Sam, the Phoenix Suns lost Game 2 against the Denver Nuggets and are now down 0-2. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I apologize to the listeners who were probably expecting us to get this episode up within half an hour, as we typically do in the playoffs, but had an internet outage at the worst possible time. I promise we were not
best.
We were not ducking the smoke. We were not hiding from the allegations or whatever.
Yeah, right.
But I don't know. Yeah, I think it's not the worst possible thing that we're recording this. Let's see, it's 1 o'clock here on the East Coast, about 12 hours after the game or so, and maybe a little bit more level-headed than we would be last night. So it's not the worst. No one's gonna listen to this anyways. So we gotta get it out there. I'm doing all right. How are you?
I feel about this. I'll be honest. I feel about the same as I felt last night. So I don't know that it changed dramatically for me. In this game, I think we can just quickly touch on the highlights of it. Devin Booker, 35 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds. And then on the other side of that, Nikola Jokic, 39 points, 16 rebounds, 5 assists, was 17 for 30, took 30 shots. I'm not sure he's done that in any playoff game yet. And the Nuggets won by 10 points in the lowest scoring playoff game the Suns have played in a long time, 87-97. And I think the big headline of the story is Chris Paul in the middle of the game went up for a rebound, had KCP crawling all over his back, and appeared to pull his groin, potentially, and in an injury that left him out the rest of the game and potentially future games as we go forward. Most likely future games, if not the rest of the time the Suns are in the playoffs.
He is getting an MRI today. He has not had that MRI at the time of us speaking right now, so we don't know. It could be, he could be back on Friday, or he could miss the rest of the playoffs. We just don't know if it's going to be a strain or a significant grade injury at this point. We'll see.
Yeah, it sucks. I mean,
it does suck.
I think
Go ahead.
Well, in the playoffs so far, I think there are 2 things that could have caught up with the Suns at some point in the playoffs. You know, I think they got out of the Clippers series pretty much unscathed. But the 2 things that could have caught up with the Suns, even just outside of injuries, which could happen to any team. The 2 things that could have caught up with them is inexperience together. So a lack of playing a lot of games together. They had 8 regular season games against, teams that were rarely playing their full lineups, and then plus the playoffs. And then the other one was they made a huge midseason trade for a player and sort of didn't have the opportunity to rebuild around that player. So that affected their depth. It affected not necessarily just their depth, because I think there are players on the Suns team that could make sense depending on the makeup of the team. But the fit, I think, with the players along with the stars that play on this team are not quite right.
Nope.
And I think in this game, and in the series in general, so far, the first 2 games, both of those things have caught up with them. You know, they don't have the guys, for one, and they don't really have the chemistry, for 2. And you can see both of those things impacting them against the Nuggets so far.
Affecting them in terms of the chemistry thing as much with the star players as with the depth. Like, obviously the depth is a huge issue with this team. The entire bench shot 2 for 16 in that game. Which is just like, come on, give us something. They couldn't give us anything in terms of production. But
as 0 3-pointers from anyone but Devin Booker and Kevin Durant in this game.
Kevin Durant. And they finally hit the benchmark that I've been asking for. They attempted 31 threes. They attempted over 30 for the first time in a playoff game this year. The only problem, they shot 6 of 31, which is 19%. Ouch.
Kevin Durant 2 for 12. We haven't even touched on his game yet, which was not good.
Yeah, look, we'll get to all of them, but what I was going to say is the chemistry thing. I mean, it's almost why Chris Paul's injury is not the main story of the night to me, because, look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It would suck to have him out. I think he's had great quarters. He's had great stretches, individual stretches, like a quarter at a time in certain games in the playoffs, but he hasn't been able to sustain it in a way that's really been long-lasting or has really felt cohesive throughout an entire game at any point in this playoffs. And he doesn't. Him and Ayton both. I mean, they're supposed to be stars number 3 and 4 on this team, and they don't really fit next to Devin Booker and Kevin Durant in the way that the team is currently constructed. They just don't. So It's a big deal to not play with Chris Paul. I'm not going to pretend that it makes the team better. It's not addition by subtraction or anything of the like. But they can still, here's your dose of optimism, they can absolutely still win games without Chris Paul, because let's face it, Chris Paul is not that good anymore. Ultimately, this team is going to go as far as Devin Booker and Kevin Durant can take them in the rest of this series.
I think the difference is there are essentially 6 players I think you could confidently say are capable of getting playoff minutes on this team. And without Chris Paul, there's 5. There's 5.
Who are the 5?
You know, I think it would be Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, DeAndre, and Chris Paul. Those are the 4. And then I think you can say Okogie and Craig are capable of getting playoff minutes.
Yeah.
For sure. Outside of that, you have Ish Wainwright, who played 2 minutes in this game. Bismack Biyombo, who is just a question mark. Jock Lando, who's a question mark. Cameron Payne, who was awful in this game. Damian Lee, who was 0 for 5 and still kind of was a better fit than anyone else so far in this game. And then you have guys who haven't even played yet, like Warren, and then Shamet finally didn't play in this game, and Terrence Ross. I think people begging for TJ Warren and Terrence Ross, I understand you guys. I understand. You do not remember just how awful their defense was off ball, I think. Terrence Ross's defense in the regular season against bad teams was just horrific. Absolutely horrific. And this is a team in the Nuggets that will pick on a player over and over and over and over again. That's not to say that the Suns should not try Terrence Ross, especially now with Chris Paul being injured.
Mm-hmm. But
I do think there is a strong defense as to why he has not played yet, and that's his lack of defense.
Yeah, it's just, you know, anytime you lose in the playoffs, there's going to be bitching about the coach and the coaching in general, and
it's always about who plays, right? It's rarely about how they're playing.
It's about a lot of things. It's not just about who plays. It is about some on-court stuff as well. But I guess it's just like I was a little frustrated with the criticisms I saw of Monty last night, because it just felt like it was coming from a place of people were mad that we lost game 1, people were mad that we lost game 2, and they were taking that out on Monty. But we lost the 2 games in completely different ways, and that's not. Like, again, that's not to put a bandage on it and say that everything is going to be fine. Like, obviously, I don't want to be down 0-2 in the series, but after game 1, we asked for adjustments. We got 90% of those adjustments going into game 2. We came out with a super physical, aggressive defensive strategy that absolutely locked down Jamal Murray. I think we got some help from the officials just in the way they called the game. We were able to play him with a lot more physicality, and that helped. Yeah, I know what you're going to say. There were iffy calls throughout there, but for the most part,
not a good performance by the referees.
There were some inconsistencies, but for the most part, they were able to play Jamal Murray in a way that did not allow him to get going, and that was great. That was adjustment number 1. Up until he got injured, we had more Chris Paul on the ball, less Kevin Durant on the ball, which limited the Suns' turnovers. Then, of course, Chris Paul gets injured. That's adjustment number 2. completely. As a matter of fact, we didn't even lose the possession battle. We actually won the possession battle in this game. We out-rebounded them. We grabbed more offensive rebounds. Landry Shamet did not touch the floor at all. There were all sorts of things that happened in this game that were different as opposed to game one. It's just Kevin Durant sucked ass and the bench sucked ass. I'm like, what are we supposed to do about that? There's not, that's not a coaching thing to me. You can play Terrence Ross. You can play TJ Warren. That's fine. Maybe we should continue to throw shit at the wall. But if you're a Suns fan and you haven't seen at this point that just every single bench player here is as deeply flawed as the next guy, there's no magic answer. In terms of the way the team is constructed, there just isn't.
Yep. I agree with that. We actually didn't out-rebound them, I just want to mention. Maybe
offensive rebounds.
Yeah.
11 offensive rebounds to their 5 is what I was referring to.
The game plan in this one was, you could sort of say it as simple as let Nikola Jokic beat you, and he did. It's funny because in this game, I think the pick-and-roll defense was improved. Mostly, I think the stuff they did off the ball to Jamal Murray is what did that, especially on DHOs, pushing him out, not letting him get a clean path into the DHO, slowing him down before he even gets to the ball. That's the work that Devin Booker did. That's the work that Josh Okogie did. That's the work that Torrey Craig did for the most part. And even if you're talking about MPJ, who also didn't have a great game in this game, I think you can give a lot of credit to Devin Booker and Damian Lee. I think Damian Lee actually did a good job on Michael Porter Jr. in this game defensively too. Damian Lee, who played 26 minutes, by the way, something we asked for in our last podcast. But
and had 0 points to show for it.
0 points, and I still kind of liked it. But you talk about the pick and roll defense getting better. Yes, it did get slightly better until the fourth quarter where it completely fell apart. And when DeAndre Ayton was tired, I think. And then you say, okay, the post defense was great in game one, but what happened in game two? DeAndre Ayton played good post defense. I mean, I think you can give him some credit there. Still got killed. Just absolutely got killed in the post.
That's fine.
By Nikola Jokic.
That's fine.
And it is fine. It is fine. But at some point,
they scored 97 points.
I know they scored 97 points.
They missed a lot of threes as well. Jokic took 30 fucking shots.
It's crazy.
This is the ideal strategy for the Suns. This is
the
why it's so
rebounds
frustrating.
by Jokic is a little frustrating, though.
It's fine.
8 rebounds for Ayton.
Honestly, it's fine. Let him shoot a million times in the post and try to beat you by himself and limit Murray and MPJ off ball. This is what we went into the series wanting. This is why basketball is a stupid sport. Because I'm telling you, people, we made the adjustments and then we just couldn't hit a fucking shot. And you lose the game
10
anyway.
10 for 27. I mean, this is where we got to talk about it. 10 for 27 by Kevin Durant. And so, some credit goes to Aaron Gordon and the Denver Nuggets. Some. He missed a lot of open shots. He missed a lot of good shots. I think there were some that Aaron Gordon just impacted and, even blocked with Kevin Durant. But outside of that, the 2 for 12 from 3 in particular, I would say a good 8 or 9 of those threes were wide open or open for Kevin Durant, and he missed 10 of them. And look, as simple as basketball can be sometimes, this game, I think you could say 2 things. Chris Paul went down. That's going to happen. I think in the playoffs, you can just kind of say, if he didn't, I think the Suns would have done a better job closing the game because Cameron Payne was awful. And when you have to use 2 bench guys, essentially, if you're counting Josh Okogie, to close the game, then you're probably not going to do a great job with those 2 guys. So if Chris Paul played the rest of the game, I think they could have won. But the big thing, the simplest thing is if Kevin Durant just plays the normal type of basketball he can play, the Suns win this game. And he didn't. And look, there's some version of saying if the process is right and the shots don't go in, it's fine. But, that's more of a regular season conversation. The shots have to go in the playoffs. This is do or die.
Yes.
The shots have to go in.
Yes.
Either they go in or you go home.
That's why we call it, it's not just a joke that we call every important game a legacy game or a legacy series. It's when the stage is brightest. Luckily, Kevin Durant has been in this situation before.
Yeah.
He has. No, he actually has. In 2012, now I realize that was a long time ago. Kevin Durant was 23 years old. But in 2012, the Oklahoma City Thunder, who were were the lower seed in that series, playing the San Antonio Spurs in the Western Conference Finals. Went down 0-2, dropped the first 2 games in San Antonio. Go back, take care of business at home, win the next 2 games. They tied up 2-2. Go back to San Antonio, win Game 5 on the road, come back to OKC. They win 4 straight. They drop the first 2 games of the series. They still clean it up in 6. Kevin Durant in that series averages 30 points per game, 8 rebounds per game. He shoots like 55% from the field. He has a stellar performance games 3 through 6. And he's doing it all while he's 23, Russ is 22, James Harden is 21, and they go to the finals, get whooped by LeBron. Everyone knows that story. Yeah. But he has done it before. He's come back from this adversity. In this year's playoffs, last round, the Golden State Warriors literally did this to the Sacramento Kings. They needed 7 games, not 6. But they came back from 0-2. We're not out of it. If we lose Game 3, we're out of it. but we're not out of it yet, goddammit. We are not out of it yet.
Okay, so I'm just going to say right now, I don't think Chris Paul is playing Game 3. Now, there is a nice 3-game break here, right? We're in day 1 of the 3-day break, I should say. We're in day 1 of that. Game 3 is on Friday. I'm just going to assume Chris Paul's not playing. Let's start with that conversation here. I don't think you start campaign, right? I don't think they're going to do that.
He was so bad, man.
I mean, there's people clamoring for campaign. I think this should be a lesson, right? It's not always just begging for other guys that's going to fix every problem.
I was one of
people are just going to switch who they're clamoring for at this point, right?
I didn't think he would fix everything, but I was one of the people clamoring for him just because I really liked, in theory, the pace that he would bring compared to Landry. But he did not see the floor like a veteran point guard that you would expect him to be at this point, kind of a guy who's benefited from what is this, Cam's third, like he spent 3.5 seasons with the Suns if you include the bubble run, which I guess doesn't really count, but like he should be benefiting from all of the continuity built up over this era of basketball with Monty Williams and Chris Paul and Devin Booker, and I don't know, he should perform like a little bit more of a veteran at this point, and he did not meet the moment at all.
He was waving off KD. He was waving off KD and Devin Booker to try to run pick and rolls. And that's the issue, right? That's the issue we run into with Cameron Payne, is that if he's a point guard, he is, even with Chris Paul out, he's probably the 3rd best player at running the team essentially as a point guard, after Devin Booker and Kevin Durant.
Minus 16 in his 17 minutes.
That was 1 for 7
worst.
overall, 0 for 4 from 3, and this is the issue, right? You kind of need campaign. If he does start, you would need him to play off ball, just entirely play off ball for the entirety of the game. Devin Booker's now the point guard. Kevin Durant runs the offense as much as he possibly can as well. You're running the offense through those 2 guys. So we'll start with assuming, obviously, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, DeAndre Ayton, those 3 are starting. I think then you have to fill out the rest of the roster, assuming no Chris Paul at that point. And I think you can slot Torrey Craig in. He's just probably at this point the 4th best player on the Suns, assuming DeAndre Ayton actually plays well, which he did for 3 quarters. Statement. Yeah, I mean, because like there's a scenario where DeAndre Ayton is worse than Torrey Craig. It happened a few games in the Clippers series as well, by the way. So it's possible Torrey Craig could be the 3rd best player on this team, depending on the game. Ayton has been a negative in the majority of the playoff games he's played so far. And that's just a fact. Sorry if that makes you mad. So let's say those 4 are playing. Can you afford to put Josh Okogie in there as the 5th guy at this point? He played pretty well on defense in this game. He played pretty well.
I mean, he was a big part in limiting Murray. Obviously, Booker played a big role in that too, because they sort of traded off depending on their minutes. Okogie only played 22 minutes. He didn't come close to matching Jamal.
His stat line does look like a box of donuts.
Yes.
0 for 0 from the free throw line, 0 3-point shots made, 0 offensive rebounds, 0 defensive rebounds,
and yet
0 steals, 0 blocks.
Well, Torrey Craig.
A 0 in plus minus, by the way.
Torrey Craig, that's not bad in a game like last night.
That's good, yeah. I mean, you can say it's good.
Torrey played 11 minutes, and he had a box of donuts as well. And I'm kind of worried because you could start both of them and you could look and squint at that lineup and say, man, that's a lot of defensive potential. But I'm just worried about the blitzes that are going to come for Devin Booker and having two guys on the floor in Josh Okogie and Torrey Craig who make you really nervous when they have to attack a closeout for different reasons. I think Josh because he's a little over aggressive and can't shoot. Torrey because you don't really want him to dribble at all. Should we start Damian Lee? Should we start Terrence Ross?
Yeah, that's the other question.
Is this the game to throw Terrence Ross out there for 35 minutes and just say, "Look, man, chuck, and we're gonna if you lose, we're done. If you win, you're a hero." You know, maybe it's time to do it.
I mean, here's what they closed with: Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, DeAndre, and Josh Okogie, Damian Lee. It was bad. It did not look good. No, that's not to say that they can't play better. I think they can. They weren't really prepared for that lineup. The ideal scenario was Chris Paul, who I think was playing really well in this game, would have closed the game and had a few jumpers to seal the deal at the end. That would have been the ideal scenario here. But in that closing lineup, they didn't look good. It's not necessarily to say that they shouldn't try it, but I think you got to give Torrey Craig a chance again if you're going to start without Chris Paul. And yes, I think it's going to be tough. Look, it's just a frustrating thing for me. If Kevin Durant screens for Devin Booker in a spread pick and roll in this game to start the game, it'll be the first time that's happened with the two of them doing that.
When I said earlier that Monty implemented 90% of the adjustments we asked for between game 1 and game 2, that's the other 10% that he continues to not do. Is KD
at this point, I'm wondering, is
in the corner.
Does KD not want to do that? Is that what we're doing at this point? I
don't know. It's weird.
Why are we doing this?
It's weird because we went to so much Okogie as the screener in the fourth quarter with Ayton sinking down into the dunker spot, but we just refused to implement what would be a much better action. And I understand you're not benefiting if you stick Okogie in the corner. You're not getting that spacing from Durant, but you can swap out Okogie and put someone else in there who can space the floor. It's just, it feels like it would work, and we definitely need to see it, but we haven't seen it.
I think they don't. I think the thought process is you're sort of bringing in the two best defenders into the pick and roll defense, right? And that's what they're worried about. I think that's probably what it is, right? They have their two best defenders on Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. Why bring the two best defenders into the action when you could bring one of their worst defenders into the action instead in MPJ, who still held up pretty well, I think we can say it again, or somebody else like Jokic into the pick and roll. And that's like it, right? If they can find ways to go, screen, then screen, right? Off ball screens to get a switch and then bring a different guy into the action with Kevin Durant, that would be a nice way to bring somebody like MPJ into it.
It just feels like the type of excuse, like you have the privilege to make that excuse when your offense is already cooking and you're trying to squeeze out a little bit more on the margins to say, hey, our offense is already good. Let's target the right mismatches and juice it a little bit to make it great. When you have an offensive performance like the Suns had in game 2, you just need fucking buckets. You can't really afford to take that approach. You know what I mean? You just need to score any way possible. And if that means a direct action involving your two best players, one screening for the other, then that's what you got to do.
Well, and this is the issue with that too, right? The reality is the other three guys probably aren't going to be, DeAndre Ayton's not a 3-point threat. So just factor that in. He's got to be in the dunker spot, meaning it's probably not going to be a clear path to the rim no matter what. There's going to be a defender at least on DeAndre Ayton that could potentially help. And then the other two guys, if they're Josh Okogie and Torrey Craig, they're just going to leave him. Right? They'll bring a third guy into the pick and roll with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker if that's the case. And that third guy will just be in the middle of the floor and leaving whoever that not non-shooter is. And this is where you can make the case, just as you said, to say maybe you just put Terrence Ross in there. And look, he's going to get... I don't know what else to say other than they're going to force the switch until he's guarding Jamal Murray, and then they're going to put Terrence Ross in the pick and roll between Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, and then DeAndre Ayton's going to be the other defender in that pick and roll. And if you factor in all of the pick and rolls in this series, that's still bad defense by DeAndre Ayton on most of those pick and rolls, I would say. The majority of them. And if you put Terrence Ross as the other defender in that, you're going to get killed. So you're right in to say that maybe you lean in all offense and you give it a try anyway and hope that you can completely outscore them.
What do we have
I don't know how good it's going to be.
It's just when we have this random assemblage of garbage depth pieces at this point, what do we have to lose? Yeah. Landry Shamet is a known quantity. Like, he'll get cooked by Jamal Murray regardless, and we know he's not going to give us even 10 points.
And he still might start.
And he still might start. Damian Lee. I don't
even know how much worse it could be.
I held out hope for Damian Lee, really hoping that this would be the game he gets going, but he hasn't shown it to us either. What do you have to lose by trying something else?
But
Worst
Damian
case scenario,
Lee,
Ross plays like shit. He's out of the league next year. Give him the chance.
Damian Lee, to his credit, played good defense. Had 3 offensive rebounds, 6 rebounds total, and 2 assists. -5 in his minutes, but 26 minutes -5 in a game they lost by 10. And that includes the end stretch where probably the entirety of his -5 came from. I actually think he was pretty good. I think he was pretty good in this game. And if the threes aren't falling, they could leave him. They weren't really in this game, but they could. And I think they will start falling at some point. I think you have to have some level of faith in Damian Lee to continue to play well. And if that means starting him, maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's what it is. They just start Damian Lee with Josh Okogie. Cross your fingers. Make Okogie the screener. Okogie has to shoot a mid-range shot if they're going to not guard him entirely and just have a guy basically with 2 feet outside of the restricted area daring him to do anything.
I don't know if he has to take that mid-range shot because I saw a lot of people focusing on that one play too where he passed it back out to Durant. I don't know if he has to take that shot because I don't know what his percentage is on that shot. I don't think it's very good. At the very least,
try to poster him. Do the Josh Okogie.
Do the Josh Okogie. Exactly. It's go full Josh Okogie, which to me means jump off of 2 feet and try and get fouled. And in a game like last night's, with the way the refs were calling it, maybe you don't get that call.
Yeah, or maybe they call a charge. You just never know what the refs are doing.
I don't know. Maybe in the future you do get that call. And if you get some of those calls in Game 3 and you're going back home, and I don't know why exactly the scientific reason behind this, but the players will feel an amped Phoenix crowd behind them, and hopefully it will just lead to a bump in shooting percentages for everyone and will raise all boats. They're not going to score 87 points again. They're not. If that happens, then I'll delete my Twitter account if they score 87 points in Game 3, because I think I'll have to at that point.
Don't, please. I don't want to be alone there. People asked me to, quote unquote, kill Monty Williams on this podcast. It's always for reasons that I just don't agree with. Look, Ish Wainwright, 2 minutes. People are going to be mad about those 2 minutes. I don't necessarily think this is a type of bench where you go, hey, let me try this. Ish Wainwright is strong. Let's see if he can wall up Aaron Gordon for a few possessions, and if it doesn't work, I'll just pull him and we'll move on. And that's exactly what happened. That's the type of bench players we have at this point, where you can try things like that and then move on if it's bad. And that's what happened in this game. I'm not going to kill him for that. I will say, and this is partially, I think David did a really great job of pointing this out. The Suns' offense in the third quarter, the Nuggets could not keep up with it as much as any quarter in this game, by the way. Only one quarter for both teams did either team score over 30 points in this game, and that was the third quarter for both teams. And they were running their offense, right? It was double drag. They were running plays in this game in that third quarter, and that's what killed them. And then in the fourth quarter, they went full matchup hunting over and over and over again. And I think there was a stretch to end the third quarter in particular where Devin Booker was just really lighting them up with passes and with shots. And that was partially because they were just running their regular offense until they doubled Devin Booker, and then he was slicing them up with passes all over the court. When they stopped doing that, when they started just switching, I think they really should have gone back to their offense, to what worked. And in some ways, I think this was the problem with not having Chris Paul out there. Because Chris Paul is not just Chris Paul, I can handle this, let me run a pick and roll, we'll get a good shot out of it 75% of the time player. He's also kind of a coach on the floor, where he'll say, hey, this play worked 8 times in a row earlier. Let's run it 15 times more until they figure out how to defend it. And without him, that's where I'm like a little bit concerned about Monty Williams. And I think you could even extend that into the future. If Chris Paul is completely gone, are we sure that Monty Williams is capable of having the offense run as smoothly as it ran with Chris Paul when he's gone? Because he might be gone as early as next year.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I think Monty Williams has been a little frustrating for me. Why did they go away from the things that were working entirely? Was it because they were switching? And if it was because they were switching, why not run double drag a whole lot more and see if that continues to work? It's that type of thing is what I think has become frustrating in this game. And I think, like you said, I want to give them credit too. They did a great job defensively in this game, which is what was bad in the first game. The defense, and they did a great job adjusting there. On the other side, I'm a little concerned without Chris Paul.
I don't know. I mean, Payne, he came in and he did so much damage in his limited time and just ruining the flow of the offense.
Yeah, that's a good point.
After that, I don't really know. I don't know exactly what these conversations look like. Of course, not being in the huddle myself is the other problem, because to what extent do Book and KD need to take some ownership of the fact that those are their decisions as well, especially with my understanding of the way that Monty coaches. I don't think Monty is a particularly authoritarian coach. And maybe he should be. Maybe that's part of people's problem.
Without Chris Paul, maybe he should be, yeah. Because Chris Paul was allowed to call the plays. And in some ways, Devin Booker should be too, and Kevin Durant should be too. But at this point, with this team and without the continuity that you want, and without the chemistry that has been able to build over the course of a regular season, and without the guys, maybe there should be a little bit more of that calling the plays on a little more
fascism
basis.
For Monty is what we need going into Game 3.
Exactly. Now, all right. So we covered the starters. I don't know what Monty's actually like. If Landry Shamet started, I would not actually be surprised. And I
hate to say it, and I would not be surprised as well. You just have to. I'm sorry. I'm laughing a lot on this pod. There's this absurdity to this entire situation. We traded for Kevin Durant. We traded for one of the greatest players of all time.
And he shot 10 for 27.
And our bench shucks ass. And here we are, down 0-2. If Landry Shamet starts Game 3, honestly, maybe that's the fate we deserve. Maybe he'll go off for 30.
Here's a... Look, I'm always honest on this podcast with my feelings and my intentions. It's bleak, guys.
It has happened before.
It's possible.
It has happened before.
It's possible. Am I confident in it without Chris Paul? I'm not. I'm not confident in the Suns coming back and winning this. Credit to the Nuggets, I think, who are playing the best defense they've played all season. I think they're doing a good job. The Suns can play better offensively. Can they play better defensively than this in this last game? Probably not. I mean, you can look out into Nikola Jokic actually missing some shots, because DeAndre Ayton, I think, played relatively good defense on him throughout the game. But outside of that, I think it's going to be tough. So we'll see what ends up happening. Any other thoughts before we wrap this one up? We're about at half an hour here.
Ladies and gentlemen, brethren, rest well, because Friday night we make our final stand. What very well could be our final stand. Stick with us. We'll be back hopefully Friday night immediately after the pod, win or loss. But let's just say, let's hope that it's going to be a win. I visited the Oracle, not Oracle Arena. I visited an Oracle that foretold me of a prophecy that Terrence Ross is going to save us in Game 3. Join us on Friday night and we'll see if the prophecy comes true.
Thanks, everyone.
For over a century, Johnny Walker has shared its bold spirit with the game of golf. Now, crafted with Devereaux Golf, Johnny Walker introduces the Johnny Walker Blue Label-inspired Sunday Golf Bag, elevating the game with sleek design, Blue Label hues, and refined gold accents. Celebrate your hole-in-one with a premium Sunday bag crafted by Devereaux Golf. Submit proof of your achievement to johnnywalker.com/blue-in-1. Please drink responsibly.